Back on the Bulls pregame show tonight, Bulls and the Atlanta Hawks here at the United Center Injury Report, brought to you by Athletic Coach, chosen provider of rehabilitation, fitness, and performance services for the Chicago Bulls. The Atlanta Hawks without the services tonight of Tiago Splitter. Thabo Sefolosha, the former Bull, is questionable. Joakim Noah is out for the season for Chicago, and Cam Bairstow and Etuan Moore also out tonight for the Bulls. And welcome back courtside, everybody, underneath the east basket. The Bulls are on the court, and the Atlanta Hawks just came out behind us. Welcome back, everybody. It's BMO Harris Bank pregame live. I'm Steve Kashul. So happy to be joined by one of the Bulls team physicians from Midwest Orthopedics at Rush, Dr. Anthony Romeo. Dr. Romeo, great to have you here.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. So, 10 games to go. We're 72 games in for the Bulls. A lot of people wanting to know, how much are the players banged up, nicked up at this point of the season?
Oh, there's no question at this time of the season, it's a bit of a grind for the players. They've been doing this over and over again throughout those 72 games, and every game has a possibility of a little tweak or a little strain here. And then they go through the recovery phase, and hopefully it recovers. But by this time of the season, a lot of them have little nagging injuries, a little tendonitis in their knee, little tendonitis in their shoulder, and they have to work very hard to kind of get loosened up and ready to go each night, and also make sure that it doesn't go into a more definitive stage of more of the pain that they have to deal with.
So, Dr. Romeo, let me ask you, certain coaches want to rest players. Okay, and how important is that to maybe rest? Like, you don't see them rest 2 or 3 games in a row, maybe just one game and then maybe a practice day. But at this point in the season, how important is it for rest?
Oh, I think it's critical. I think a lot of people don't understand that when you train or you play like these guys do at this level, every time they play a game, they actually have a breakdown in their muscles, their tendons have a little bit of micro tears, and it's the recovery phase, what they do after the game or after they train, which actually is so critical for them to be able to recover from the injury, to make those tendons and muscles stronger and get back out on the court. And what happens is if they don't pay attention to that through that recovery phase, which is a lot of it is rest, then those injuries start to be nagging and become more and more difficult. As a player goes through his career, he gets older, then there's no question it takes longer for that to take place. So a lot of teams are very careful with their players as they start getting up in years and mileage to give them a little bit more rest at this time so they can make the run for the postseason.
Dr. Anthony Romeo is our guest from Midwest Orthopedics at Rush, one of the Bulls team physicians. Coming up, Bulls and the Atlanta Hawks. It's our BMO Harris Bank pregame live show. I'm Steve Kashul. I know you specialize, Doc, in shoulder and elbow injuries. Talk about those injuries. Are they prevalent in the NBA and with basketball players?
You know, fortunately, the serious injuries are not prevalent. We have all known about some of the more significant ones where the shoulders come out of place or dislocate, and unfortunately, that oftentimes can end the season of the player. But most of these athletes, the problem is they get a tendonitis of the rotator cuff, the little muscles around the shoulder to help stabilize the shoulder and allow the bigger muscles to work so well. So they have a soreness often in the front of their shoulder, on the side of their shoulder. It can lead to where they have difficulty raising up their arm without discomfort. And that's where the training staff and the people that work with the soft tissues to try to help them recover and get over the inflammation and tendonitis make a big difference at this time of the year so they can get their motion back and maintain their strength. But fortunately, most of the injuries are treatable, and with the right recovery and rest, they can get better and do not have any concerns about surgical treatment.
Obviously more prevalent with baseball pitchers than any other sport probably, right?
Absolutely. So we've done a lot of work on this, and it's amazing with all the trainers and doctors and therapists that we have in Major League Baseball to try to prevent injury. The one thing we know for sure is the incidence of injuries in our baseball players, especially our pitchers, continues to increase. In fact, it's an epidemic in the amount of elbow injuries and shoulder injuries that are occurring that require surgery. So we have to do a better job of figuring out what it is that precipitates that and try to minimize that so we can take away some of these injuries and allow them to continue to stay on the field.
Dr. Anthony Romeo, our guest from Midwest Orthopedics at Rush. Final question, Doc. What are you seeing in the office? What's up at the MOR these days? Who's coming into the office to see you?
Well, all sorts of interesting people. I don't think you would mind to say, but for the crowd, Randy Orton from the WWE was in, and he had a shoulder that kept coming out of place and had it operated on, and I was able to fix that, and he'll be back at the end of summer and ready to go again and toss people around in the ring. So we have that kind of interesting thing. We have our Major League Baseball players coming in, the ones that tried to recover in the offseason and then they get into spring training. Unfortunately, it just isn't going right, so now they're going to undergo surgery. And so those are the major injuries that we're seeing at this time. We're just starting to get into sort of the preparation for football and spring training, so we'll start to see that very soon too.
Well, great stuff. Appreciate your help and joining us. Continued success at the terrific Midwest Orthopedics Rush.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Dr. Anthony Romeo, one of our Bulls team physicians. Stay with us. Coming up next, it's going to be Bill Wennington rejoining us for our Chili's Chatter segment. We got the Bulls and the Atlanta Hawks tonight here at the United Center. Our coverage continues with more on the Chicago Bulls Radio Network.